Hey guys, I was listening to a message by Perry Noble this last weekend, and he said something pretty interesting in his message. He was just doing a normal Q&A, with his congregation, and they asked about church leadership, and I'm going to watch what he says. I have some thoughts, but mostly just questions about what you guys think. Here's Perry.
Does God give a specific structure for how the church should run, like a business? This was asked by somebody on the Anderson campus. Yes and no. Next question. I'm just kidding. When we first started New Spring Church 10 years ago, I was convinced with all my heart that I knew how to do church. And that my way was the right way, and everybody that was doing church that wasn't doing church like New Spring Church was obviously wrong, and they were sinners, and they were all going to hell. Here we are 10 years later, and I have finally, and this happened several years ago, but I've determined it takes all kinds of churches to reach all kinds of people. And there is no one right way to do church. Now, the question has to do with structure. And I'm not totally, I hope I'm getting this right. Is there a way a church should be structured? There is no evidence in the scriptures anywhere that a church should be structured to be ran by people that don't actually do the work. Let me give you an example. If you were on an airplane and you were flying from the East Coast to the West Coast, and on that airplane was the pilot, who was the most qualified person to fly the plane. You know what I'm talking about? Like, you want your pilot to fly the plane. But let's say your pilot, if he encountered some turbulence and a severe problem while he's flying the plane, let's say the pilot, before he could fix the problem, had to come out to the first class cabin and ask a bunch of people that had never really flown a plane what their opinion was on how to fly the plane. So you got a doctor, an electrician, a plumber, and a housewife, and he goes, "What do y'all think about flying the plane?" And then they come up, we call this a committee. And they come up with a solution, never flown a plane. And then they go back to the coach cabin, and the coach cabin votes on the solution. And then the coach cabin, along with the first class cabin, comes and tells the pilot what he is then allowed to do. Anybody want to fly on that plane? No, but a lot of people want to go to that church. God called leaders to lead the church. God called leaders to lead the church. And so, that's the way we're a staff-led church, and we make no apologies about it. And we have people every once in a while they go, "Well, I think that's arrogant." Well, no. Like, how stupid would it be for me to walk into the president of a banking office and go, "You make decisions. This is my bank all the time. You make decisions all the time about banking. You've never called me." And my banker would go, "What do you know about banking?" "Well, I know math. I read a banking book." So the reason we're structured the way we're structured here at New Spring is because in the scriptures it just says leaders are called. God specifically called people to lead the church, and and that's the way. I hope that answered your question. If not, you can retext it in. Hopefully that works.
So I get what Perry's saying, and it makes sense because, like none of us get on an airplane and go to the pilot and tell him how to fly the plane, how to get us there. We just trust that he's gone through years of training to know how to fly a plane and that he'll get us there, So that makes sense. But is that the way it is in the church? I've been through 7 years of formal education about youth ministry in college and in seminary. And is it legitimate for the people in our churches and congregations to kind of think that they can tell us how to do our jobs, On one hand, I see what Perry's saying. On the other hand, it's kind of like, it's not an airplane. This is a church. This is very different. And I wonder if it applies with the church the same way it does in ministry. Now, most of us probably have church boards that are on some level, that we're responsible to, whether it's in your pastor or, like we have people all over the church that are telling us what to do with congregation members, parents, teenagers, senior pastor church boards. But none of them have been through like ministry training, So maybe your pastor, hopefully it's people on the board, but usually people on the board are businessmen, people who approach the church as it would be a business, and they're really good at taking care of the business side of the church, but maybe they don't always understand the ministry side of expectations and pressures. What about parents? You know, they have teenagers, and so they know something about that, obviously, but you know, I don't know. It's a good question. I thought it was an interesting approach to ministry. It's how they're doing it. Obviously, it's working for them. Very effective ministry from an outside perspective, anyway. A lot of good life change taking place there. So, you know, maybe it's appropriate. Maybe it's not. That's what I'm wondering, and I'm just kind of curious to know what you guys thought about his approach to ministry. You know, as far as church boards and staffing and all that kind of stuff. So leave comments. Let's try to keep all the comments in one place so I can kind of keep track of the discussion, and we can all kind of read each other's thoughts. If you don't mind putting them at studentministry.org under this video, that would be best for keeping track of them all, rather than putting some on Facebook and some on YouTube and stuff. So let's try it, and I'd like to hear what you guys are thinking. So look forward to hearing your thoughts.